the Beyond the Snap podcast. Can you believe it? We are on episode 34. I don't know how that looks on camera. It might say 43. So we're going to go this way with it, and then we're going to flip it back to that way just in case to cover all bases. Episode 34. What just happened? All I saw was SEC basically getting a big axe. They're like the mighty tree, the mighty oak that you see in the forest, and then all you see is boom, upset, upset, upset. First off, Vandy upsets the number one team, Bama, after they just beat Georgia, who is arguably the best opponent they're ever going to play. That just means that Vandy is the best team in the nation, guys. That's all I can say. Vandy should have been number one in AP polls. They were robbed. No, of course, I'm kidding. But yeah, that's one of the upsets. Tennessee, the hype team, Nico Yamaleva for a Heisman Awards. Nope. The Razorbacks said that's not going to happen. Boom. Took them out. And then, of course, you had just some of the close games like Miami when they played. Miami played some Group of 5 team. Did not do well.
What? They played Cal, dude. Saying Cal is okay.
Cal's a Group of 5 team.
The Cal Bears have a premier rugby program, and on top of that, their
Premier
football
rugby.
team should have beaten Miami, the number
And they did
8th
not.
ranked team in the nation. They should
They
have.
didn't.
Did you see that egregious targeting call? It is
Yeah.
now confirmed. The refs
We're paid.
bleed green and orange.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm sorry, my spirited defensive Cal. But yeah, okay, Kirtan. All right, Mister.
Yeah, the Group of 5
They're
team.
a Group of 5 team.
Group of 5 team. But yes, the Cal, I don't know why I'm thinking SoCal, but the California Bears, Golden Bears, lost to Miami in probably the greatest comeback I've ever seen in my life. And no, it was not targeting.
Yes, it was.
So what do you want me to say?
You literally saw him.
But besides that, what else happened, Kieran? We saw Michigan lose in the championship rematch to Washington. We had the Aggies just implode and explode and absolutely just kill the Mizzou Tigers. And Brady Cook, he looked confused, he looked lost, and Connor Weekman looked like he belonged at where he is. So we saw a major jump from them. And we saw Florida take on UCF, and indeed it is true. The 2017 National Championship did not go to UCF. I don't know what they're smoking over there that they think that they won the National Championship 2017. Newsflash, not true. You can go look it up too. I'm not even lying. But yes, that is a recap of basically everything that happened. So let's dive in and explore some of these games. So starting off with what I said was the implosion of Mizzou. This was Missouri taking on A&M in Kyle Field, and arguably the hardest place to play football in. And it actually did look that way because Connor Weekman looked like he had a chip on his shoulder. He did not like all the comments about preparing for the other quarterback, preparing for his backup. And so he went out and he destroyed everything and everyone that was in his path. Kieran, you want to get more explanation out of that one?
Yeah, A&M looked really good. I mean, I don't think that they are the premier power in the SEC, but they're certainly trending better. They look better with Wigman at the helm, undoubtedly. They look more confident, they look more assertive, and I think that was the spark that they needed to get them over the edge. Once you've got the road team down, it's always going to be hard for them to come back, and you don't have the win secured, but you're well on your way. It was a good game. Missouri played, I'll just say that. But you can see what they've lost from last year, mainly on the defensive side of the ball for Missouri and also with the running back position. They miss Crody Schrader. They miss him very, very badly. But you're still seeing Luther Burden had a touchdown called back, and that might have changed the momentum of the game, right? You have to avoid those costly penalties. Was it illegal man downfield? Maybe it doesn't change anything, but you have to think at least the momentum shifts a little. Maybe you're able to get Kyle Field out of it, and maybe Brady Cook is able to find a rhythm, right? But at the end of the day, it's a rough loss for Missouri. They're not out of playoff contention, but certainly we knew A&M was going to be there. We thought they might be there, and it looks like they are going to be there down the stretch as contending for one of those at-large playoff spots.
Yeah, and A&M just looked solid, just to reiterate. just without this whole drama happening since Notre Dame with like the quarterback position, who's really going to start, what's it going to look like in the future? I think Connor Weigman really did solidify his spot as the number one starter because he both had like 250 yards passing with 100 yards rushing, and he is not a rushing running quarterback, but he was able to improvise and make the best out of every situation. So watch A&M because if A&M keep trending this way, when they go play LSU, when they go play all these hard teams, and they shock you with a win, then rivalry week is just going to get better. Then we're going to see Texas go up against another hard opponent, just which is going to benefit both teams because now A&M, if let's say Texas stays undefeated, if A&M beats them, guaranteed playoff spot, and if Texas beats them, it just strengthens their schedule. So look out for that whenever they play next, or whenever they play rivalry week. But until then, let's talk about the next team, which was actually a team that we ranked as 25. This was Navy taking on the rivals, the Air Force Falcons.
Yeah, so I would really encourage y'all to watch some of these football games where Navy's playing, where you're seeing Army play. This Navy team and this Army team, they're a really special group. You saw Blake Horvath get off to an amazing start, scoring early and often. Navy really looked dominant. It was one of those just a little bit of a murder ball game. They're able to control the ball and just honestly beat the pants off Air Force. And it's both indicative of good things to come for Navy and indicative that Navy is able to perform consistently across all environments, which I think is partially due to the culture in that program. And credit to Brian Newberry. He's done amazing there to get this team to this point. But I think it was a good win, solid win. Could not be more proud of the midshipmen.
Yeah. But again, as another college football fan who is more interested in the passing game, when you watch these military games, it is all about who can control the ground game and who can control the run game. This game had a total of, I believe, 13 or 14 passes that were completed in total, and it was a typical military game. It was run, pound the ball, control the clock, win the game, proper military style, everything in order perfectly. So again, watch midshipmen be on the lookout for getting a playoff spot. I believe right now ESPN College Football Predictor has them at like a 20% chance. So it is a very real thing, and it would be the first time I think ever a Navy or a military team makes the playoffs in college football. Of course, this is 12 team, not 4, but we'll see what happens. Anything could happen in this wild football season. And that moves us on to actually the wild football season. Bama lost to Vanderbilt of all teams. You had to pick the weakest one, the one that Nick Saban quoted less than a week ago, saying, "Oh yeah, we'll have an easy win over there." It did not happen.
Yeah, Vandy is a better team than you think they are. They got Diego Pavia in at quarterback. He's been looking amazing. He's been able to run the ball. He's been able to throw the ball. And the thing that struck me is, so when I was listening to this game live, I was driving home from my grandmother's house this weekend. And as I'm driving, right, I'm presuming that there's some wild stuff happening, right? That Bama's blowing some coverages. It doesn't look as neat and pinned up as it usually does. But it didn't. Vandy just beat them. Vandy was able to pound the ball on the ground, get into the end zone when it needed, throw the ball, exploit broken coverages, and even good coverage. They were able to exploit it, get that ball placed where you want it, and score. And to me, the biggest problem is Alabama's defense, because you look at Jalen Milroe on the offense, they put up 35 points, right? With Vanderbilt driving, with Vanderbilt holding the football. That's pretty impressive. Ryan Williams had another good game. I think this Bama offense may be one of the best in college football, if not the best. The issue for me is the defense. I think they have great bodies. Jahad Campbell, Deontay Lawson should be two of the best linebackers in the sport. They played great against Georgia in the first half, and then since then they haven't played well. You've had 6 quarters where the Bama defense has not looked like itself, and that could really be indicative of a problem. And even seeing this game, right, you have to say that Texas and Georgia kind of look like the favorites in the SEC again. Like, maybe not, but they're kind of looking that direction. And if Texas can continue playing to a high level, it almost seems like they're going to be hard to catch.
Yeah. And I just think that Vandy played a more complete game. From every single level, Diego Pavia looked unstoppable, especially when he would make tough passes. He would put his nose down and just run for brute force yards. And that's basically what sealed the game. I think Vandy bottled Jalen Milroe 10 times better than Georgia figured out a way to, because they were immediately in the backfield before he could even get his motor running to get like those crazy 4-4-40 times. He was already sacked in the backfield or tripped up or something happened where he wasn't able to get the ball off. And everyone knows we've seen his weaknesses. Jalen Milroe cannot throw the deep ball. Jalen Milroe cannot throw far passes more than 20 yards without being inaccurate to some degree. And we saw that last year when they played Texas. And now we know that his big thing is that he is very, very mobile. No one is doubting that. And he can make the sharp reads. But when you actually make him sit in a pocket and think, or you rush him and he is forced to actually throw the ball, that is what Alabama does not want because they know that is his weaker part of the game. And I think Vandy bottled that up to a perfect degree. And so it raises the question, is Vandy a really good team? I mean, I haven't checked the SEC standings. I'm going to try to check those right now as I'm talking. But I know right now that basically every team is either 1-1 or 2-0 or 1-0 in the SEC already, hence Texas. So let's just take the three favorites real fast. You got Texas, you got Georgia, you got Bama. Bama's already lost one game. You can bank on them probably not losing another one because they don't really have anyone tough on their schedule besides from LSU, but no one of those top three calibers. But yet we have a really fun matchup between two teams, Georgia and Texas. Georgia already has one loss in the SEC, Bama. So here's the thing. What happens when these two teams play? Because I feel like if Georgia loses this game, Georgia falls to 8 or 9. We'll still make playoffs, but we'll be a lower seed. But if Texas loses, then you really have to think about who makes the playoffs or who makes the SEC championship game and who doesn't. Because then each of these teams have a one loss. Each of these teams have to figure out what to do now because then you could say, well, Bama should make it because they beat Georgia. Georgia should make it because they beat Texas. Texas should make it because they just historically are better than Bama or they beat Bama last year. And so it's just going to become this whole mumble jumble that happened last year in the Big 12 between OU, Kansas, and Texas. And so we're going to have to see how that plays out. How will that affect each team? But expect Bama to be back, probably looking for vengeance. And yeah, they need to they have to solve some things. First off, is that defense is looking pitiful. You cannot let Vandy score that many points on you. And still, like the secondary was getting carved. The linebackers weren't able to make the proper tackles that they needed to make. And the D line was not getting in the backfield in time. And on offense, you got to get shorter routes, stop going for these deep route combos, and look to handle the ball off more, and just look to manage the clock better than you did. Because that game, there was multiple chances in the fourth quarter where I truly believe that you could have managed the clock better to at least get the ball back maybe one or two more times. But that's enough being said of that. Then let's move on to the next upset in the SEC. This was Tennessee versus Arkansas, and the most hyped up team right now took a loss in Razorback Stadium. So, Kieran, what happened in this game?
So Tennessee had a lackluster first half offensively. Iamali Ava looked uncomfortable. Sampson didn't really look like he had any kind of running rhythm. Didn't look like he had a whole lot of meat to run behind and ways to attack the defense. And then that stopped in the third quarter. Tennessee was able to get rolling, get a couple first downs, lead to a couple touchdowns. It looked like they were going to be okay. They were going to pull away. They were going to survive. And then Arkansas responded. Even when their starting quarterback had to come out, the backup came in and he made it happen. He was able to hand the ball off to get in. They score. They score again. Tennessee is now down, and then they're able to stop them and win the game. And to me, this is a question of Tennessee's defense. Arkansas's offense has been good but problematic at times, and you could see that there were places to be exploited and there were plays to be taken advantage of by the Tennessee defense, and they didn't do that. You didn't see as much of James Pierce Jr. as I would have liked to. You didn't see as much of the rest of that Tennessee team, and you saw their inexperience in the secondary coming to bite them in their orange behinds. They just looked like they weren't ready for the Arkansas challenge. They had expected to be beating them with 71 points scored and all that, right? And you have to slow down and think about getting your offense established and then being able to flip the field, play defense effectively against what is honestly a lower tier SEC team, right? We have to be honest with ourselves. It took a miracle for them to beat Oklahoma State, right? They're not with that other SEC caliber, but it is certainly a disappointing upset for Tennessee, and it puts them with Ole Miss, with, to me, Alabama now, with not Georgia, but with at least Ole Miss and Alabama and Tennessee and A&M, where if you take another loss, it starts to get hard to get to the playoffs, right? You take that other loss, and then you're really, really struggling to get to the playoffs. So there's a lot of teams that could be on the fringe, and some of them will get in, right? But they're all on that, I'm calling it playoff elimination game, right? They're looking for that game. LSU is there. Old Miss, is, like I said, is there. And you see these kind of teams where it's a playoff caliber team, but can they get enough wins, and can they get enough quality wins to justify being in over another team that doesn't have the negatives against them like they do?
Yeah. And so just to recap what I was saying last time about the SEC standings right now, it's actually A&M who's 3-0 in conference play, followed by Texas who's 1-0, followed by I believe a whole bunch of LSU who's 1-0. Then you have the Georgia, Arkansas who are 2-1s. Then you have your splits down the middle: Ole Miss, Alabama, Mizzou, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and then you have your bottom teams. But yeah, keep an eye out because A&M is also up there, Texas up there, LSU's up there, Georgia, Arkansas, they're all looking good. In regards to this game, Nico just did not play well. I believe he was 16 for 28 passing. He only had 155 yards. They really just relied on the run game, and the big thing that killed them was that they could not convert on third and fourth down. They were 0-2 on fourth downs, and then they had to punt 7 times, like, waited for the ball, while Arkansas only punted 3 times. So it just goes to show you that they were not at it. They were not ready. They were not prepared for this challenge. I think they overestimated their opponent egregiously because they just been steamrolling through teams. So they must have thought this is no different. And yeah, now it's really going to show them that, look, you're not the top dog. And now when you play these teams like Georgia, you need to over prepare more than you really think you are. You are not as good as you are. What I'm trying to say is you're not as good as you think you are, and you have to prepare for that. Nico still has a lot of learning to do. He is still fairly new. I believe this is his sophomore year or freshman year. I don't know if he was redshirted, but he is still very, very new to the game, and he has to understand the experiences of playing in harder stadiums with bigger, louder crowds, and understand how he has to perform to the best of his ability in these fields and in these environments. So enough said about them. But yeah, if you are a Big Ten fan, just real quick, you must have been celebrating this week because this is exactly what you wanted. You wanted the SEC to implode. Well, it did. SEC now looks wide open. It doesn't look nearly as strong as it used to. And now you can slip in the idea of Ohio State being at 1, Oregon being at 3, Penn State being at 4. You can slip in these ideas because now you can say, well, we are the stronger conference. But only time will tell, and this week will be a very good test about that. Okay, and then wrapping this up real fast. Clemson and Florida State. Florida State. What happened? I wish you guys had a time machine to go back and make sure that you never picked up DJ. I wish you just would have left him in Oregon State and gone with someone else. Maybe you could have gotten Cam Ward if you really, really tried. But yeah, keep working your game, and great win for the Clemson Tigers. Still looking solid. Had over 200 yards for 2 touchdowns, exactly what you wanted your quarterback. Phil Moffitt running the ball well, and is going back to their old style of football. Kieran, what do you want to add about that?
Yeah, solid game for Clemson. You could see in the BFER poll rundown we'll give later that they're climbing, they're doing well, and they are looking good to be the kings of the ACC.
Yep. And then real fast, the only one we have not mentioned is Cal versus Miami. So there was a lot of things that happened in this game between the Golden Bears, who hosted Cam
Targeting,
Ward.
lots of targeting.
Yeah, lots of targeting. And of course, you had this, but we'll get into that later. A crazy, crazy start to the game where I believe at one point you had Miami down 34. You had Michael Irving out there doing a crazy dog pose because his team was just getting absolutely whooped. and then you found a will, you found a way, and you found that the refs are very easy to bribe, and you could win this game, Miami. So good on
Yeah,
you.
so
Go ahead,
I
yes.
hate to say it, but Miami is the hardest team to evaluate in college football. There is so much upside. Cam Ward looks like he is this close to being one of the best quarterbacks we've seen for a long time in the sport. But he's also got downside, right? I said it to my dad when we were watching this game. I was like, I love to watch Cam Ward and I would hate to play him, but I would also hate to have him on my team because of the things that he does with the football, right? And some of it's absolutely incredible, but some of it's kind of stupid, right? These back across the shoulder passes that we've seen get bit with interceptions, right? When they play a good defense and that defense is disciplined, stays there, they're going to be able to take advantage of that, right? All the scramble drills, the fire drills that Miami, the plays break down and Cam Ward makes stuff happen. There's a positive to that. There's a huge positive to that, but there's also a negative, right? And you see that too in the way they play. They start terribly, right? They allow Virginia Tech and Cal to be up on them, right? To have a chance to win the game. And then they're able to finish it out with crazy comebacks. They're the hardest team to evaluate right now. Obviously, it's hard to really say how much that penalty would have affected it, but you have to say that penalty could have clinched the game for Cal, gives them a first down. They can burn clock. Miami gets it with maybe 20 seconds left and no timeouts. You have to say that game is probably over. Of course, Cam Ward could have worked his magic, but you have to say that ultimately it was the refs that enabled Miami to finish that comeback, but Miami made that comeback happen.
Yeah, and Cam, like Kieran said, is going full circle, is that Miami's such a hard team to rank because they do have their highs and they do have some low lows. Cam Ward he did not look up to par at the beginning of the game, and then he looked like he settled in, found Xavier Restrepo, started figuring out how to play this game better, and then started winning. Yeah, again, another thing, fourth quarter clock management needs to be very, very, very highly studied because you have to figure out how to win these games, especially when it comes late. Do not play too conservative, as it leads to fourth downs, it leads to punts, and it allows for the other team to put up points. You got to still keep a balanced playbook, and so I know that the Golden Bears will figure that out sooner or later, and they played a damn good game, and hopefully they can keep it up this entire time because they're going to need it. Because every team, again, every single team now, the 12-team playoff, has a chance to make the playoffs if you really, really do your best. So that's anywhere from, well, not Florida State, anywhere besides Florida State, you have a solid, solid shot. So do not give up. You can still make it. Everyone thinks so. So watch out for both those teams because Miami, we don't know where they're at right now, but we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. So that wraps up our portion of reactions to what happened in week 6. Right now, we're about to transfer into the BFER poll, see how everything shook out after that crazy week. And then we're going to hit you with what's happening this week, a couple of rivalry games, a couple of major power ranking games, and just some fun ones too to watch. So here, let's pull that up. So can you explain the biggest changes happening at the top of this AP or of this BFER poll?
Yeah, so you got a new number 1 that we haven't really seen anywhere. You have Ohio State. Now, the reason Texas isn't here is because Texas was on a bye. We here believe that buys tend to do more harm than good, especially when your team is healthy. And when you weren't starting your prime quarterback in Quinn Ewers, right? So that's why Ohio State is at 1. We think right now their game is more tuned up and ready to go, especially after that gritty win at Iowa. Alabama only falls to 3. The reason is we would both take Alabama over Oregon. We'd both take Georgia over Oregon. So you can't justify them falling. Again, not a ranking. It is a rating and a poll of the best teams in the sport. Penn State below Oregon, good. We're waiting for you to be great. Tennessee, you're dropping 2 spots. Ugly upset, but you still have the incredible potential. Miami, you're up 2 spots. You're kind of in purgatory, but we didn't have anyone else to put there, let's be honest. Clemson, you're at 9. Solid win. Still 1A, 1B with Miami for the ACC. Ole Miss at 10. Nice win. Demolished South Carolina, who, may I remind you, beat Kentucky, who beat Ole Miss. It's a mess. but they're at 10. 11, Texas A&M up 13 spots. The Wigman difference is real. Yes, we do reward quarterbacks here at the BFER poll. 12, LSU. LSU's been there, solid, done that, winning, ready to go. Iowa State up 4, best team in the Big 12 right now, most consistent team. We think they've got a shot to win it all. Notre Dame in the Big 12, before you come at me. Notre Dame up 1, good game, looking good, still poised for an at-large playoff spot potentially. The loss to NIU does hurt. USC down 2. We think Minnesota's a good team more than USC's a bad team. And again, close game sealing interception. There's some give and take here, right? But USC 15. 16, Kansas State haven't moved. They're rolling, looking good. Michigan down 3, shameful loss at Washington, and quarterback problems. They're problematic. And also, Michigan can't control the ball. Problems for Michigan. 18, Indiana. Solid team. 6-0, may I point out. And so is BYU at 19. Missouri dropping 10 spots with some issues of the offensive variety and also kind of the defensive variety. But they're down 10 spots. Boise State is new into the poll. Yes, Ashton Jeanty is just that good. We had a stat, Kirtan. Would you care to share? Against an 8-man box, what is Ashton Jeanty's average rushing?
Against a fully stacked box of 8 people, he is averaging 8.9 yards per carry, ladies and gentlemen. That is basically a guaranteed first down after 2 plays over and over and over and over until he muscles his way down into the end zone. Can you believe it?
So I just like to point out one thing. An 8-man box, right? You've got 5 offensive linemen. I know we can do math here. We took the PSAT today. We've got you. That means you have 3 potentially free tacklers. Say, best case scenario, you're in a 2-back set, right? You've got a 2-back set and a tight end. There is still a free tackler. If you go 2 tight ends, you're looking at a 10-man box, right? No one's going to play a 2-tight set with anything less than an 8. But if you've also got 2 backs, you're looking at more like a 9 or a 10. So there is at least a couple of free tacklers in the box, in that little 5-yard window to tackle Jeanty, and he makes the miss on average. Not even on some plays, on average. That is absolutely insane. Someone needs to get this man a Heisman. So, moving on. SMU. They are your ACC dark horse or dark pony, no pun intended. They could win it. Say Clemson and Miami cannibalize each other, right? Then SMU's right there, make some plays, get some interceptions, turn the ball. SMU, your ACC championships. Pitt, oh my gosh. They are undefeated by some miracle, and Pitt looking like a solid team out here. Oklahoma, they've lost 4 spots. We are still seriously concerned about that freshman quarterback, and we don't think their defense is playing as well as they could. Again, they were on a bye. It is more that other teams moved up than Oklahoma moved down. Oklahoma at 24. 25, Illinois. Tough-nosed physical team with some good wins. Can't do anything bad, including them.
Yep.
And yes, Kirtan did revolt that I put Navy in the poll against both Kirtan and the model's wishes. They will be back. I vow the midshipmen will be back at some point, but they were unfortunately excluded.
Yeah. So just my recap of it is the exact same, essentially. Ohio State has to be at the top. We do not reward bye weeks. We are 2 big fans of college football, and when you choose not to play on a bye week, we do not like you. So Texas, that's why they are dropped down to 2. That is why you have Oklahoma down at 4. Let's see, Bama and Georgia, we think they're inseparable because they both played an outstanding game, the game of the year probably, and it's just so hard to actually – because I think, honestly, that game could have gone either way. You talk to me on a different day. They play on a different day. You play with the different weather conditions. It's hotter outside. It's colder outside. That game could have gone a multitude of different ways. Oregon, I don't know how confident I am that you should be up here at number 4 because you did have a very close game against Boise State. You didn't look the best against UCLA. How can we really trust you? But since you are undefeated, you have to go up here, and you get to play Ohio State to prove yourself. Penn State also having to have a really good test against USC, so we'll see how that goes out for them. Tennessee, of course, your upside is better than your down, and it's the same reason why we put Alabama at 3, because it was just a fluke. We're going to chalk everything that happened last week to all of our major teams to it's a fluke. It's a one-time thing. Kind of what we said about Florida State against Georgia Tech. Turns out that wasn't a fluke, but hopefully y'all can prove to us that it's a fluke. We're keeping you at 7. We love the upside. Miami, you just had to fit the bill. You had to fit the spot. We had no other team that we honestly said could separate these two. So we throw you in there, even though you had a really, really close game that may or may not should have been that close, and you may or may not should have won that game in general. But we're going to keep you here at 8. 9 Clemson. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're going to make the playoffs. You're going to make a good run if you keep on playing Dabo Swinney football and force others to confront to your ways and change and play their game against y'all. Ole Miss, right now they're in a circus because they beat teams that beat Ole Miss. We're going to see how that plays out for them, especially this week because, little teaser, we have LSU going against Ole Miss for may or may not be one of the important games this week. You have Iowa State, the most consistent, honestly, based off of everything that me and Kieran have seen, are the best Big 12 team, hands down, because they don't have any off days. You can tell that they want to win the entire thing. They have been overlooked, and they want to get this win, especially when you have teams like Arizona who are hot against Kansas State and then lose. You have the same thing with other teams. The only contender you have is BYU, and so we're really going to see how that shakes out for them. Notre Dame, you're just getting taxed because of NIU, and that's always going to keep you down here between the 10th through the 20s. USC, bad loss to Minnesota. But again, we here value the fact that we think you at your best will beat Kansas State at their best. And we truly believe in that. And clearly, Minnesota is just a better team than what we thought they were. Kansas State, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing good. Avery Lloyd, love it. David Johnson, I don't know what's up, Avery Lloyd. Michigan, good game, bad loss. Just do better next time. So all I can really say, Michigan should have won their game. They should have played better than they did. But again, Michigan at their best, if they actually know who their quarterback is, if they actually choose the right quarterback, they are a 17 ranked team. So that's why they're so high up in the power ranking. Indiana, undefeated. Need I say less? BYU, same thing. Go battle out in the Big 12. Or, yeah, okay, good. Got that one right. Didn't want to say Big 10 on accident. Missouri, what happened? Question mark, question mark, question mark. We're just gonna say the lights were too bright, and that's why you dropped all the way down to 20. Please do something against Auburn so we don't look like fools keeping you up here in like the top 20 after what was an embarrassment game against A&M. Boise State, we apologize for not ranking you earlier. We were not familiar with Ashton Genty. We thought he was just another group of 5 guy who was beating up on these small teams. Nope, turned out that he is a menace to society. And if the actual Heisman Trophy was a fair and honest trophy, it would be him winning it, Travis Hunter running him up, and then maybe one of the quarterbacks. Do not make this a QB award. I do not like the NFL MVP. Do not turn this league into the NFL, or I will stop watching it. SMU, Preston Stone, appreciation. Quick little move him up to 23 or 22 after beating Louisville, who was previously ranked in the Power Poll. Great win. Keep it up. Pitt, they're actually looking very solid for once, looking steady, looking back to the Kenny Pickett days, just a little bit better. You're up here at 23. Oklahoma, it's so hard to say. Again, we don't like people that go on bye weeks because we kind of find it a little bit annoying that you don't want to play football. And honestly, if you could just remove your bye week, that'd be so much better. Michael Hawkins Jr., will he perform or will he not? To be or not to be, that is the very important question that we're going to witness today or tomorrow or Saturday. I'm all over the place, guys. We're going to see, can he actually live up in the big moments? Can he make a Caleb Williams type impression and just beat Texas for the first time, like prove dominance? We're really going to see that game is going to be so fun to watch. And lastly, Illinois. Illinois have just been very, very, very solid, and that's why they're rounding out the 25. Navy, notable exit. Not really an exit, but you played Air Force. I mean, come on now. Like, my grandma's like favorite team from the 1960s was like better than Air Force will ever be. So like, let's be honest, Navy, you can do better. Beat them up later, Navy, and then Florida State. Yeah, you'll never be up here. Vanderbilt, we're sorry, but just because you beat Bama doesn't make you immediately amazing. Even though we did kind of catfish people with our podcast title, but that's all right. So yeah, this rounds out our AP top 25. No, the Beaver poll. The Beaver poll. The Beyond Football Excellence rating. And that's what we
Okay,
have for week 7.
Kirtan, given our reaction and given the poll, I have a defense question for you. Who has the best defense in college football right now?
Georgia Bulldogs.
How can you justify that?
Historically, we said the most.
Not historically, I mean right now.
Culture wise, I would have to say it is Penn. I gotta think. Hold up.
See, I told you it was a tricky question because
Texas
you've got to.
Is shaky. I don't know how much I trust them. They've been playing bummy opponents so far, so we really don't know how that's gonna fare. Alabama, let's just not talk about them after this week. Ohio State, I mean, I guess we can make a case for after holding Iowa to 7, but honestly, when was the last time Iowa's offense was the talking point of the team? So that's a no. Oregon allowed 34 points and let Ashton Genty make a field day out of them. No. Penn State maybe have been holding their games close. Tennessee holding their teams close and blowing out other opponents. Miami, no. Clemson, no. Ole Miss, no. A&M, no. LSU, no. I would have to say it's between Penn State, the Georgia Bulldogs, and Ohio State Buckeyes. I don't know.
That's an interesting answer.
I
genuinely can't tell you. Like, maybe you throw a Texas, Ohio State. I don't know. And I think that's evidence of an offensively dominated era. Unfortunately, I have to concede this. And that's very sad. And let's preview some games.
Well, I'll ask you a flip question. Who has the best offense right now?
I am inclined to say Alabama.
I'm inclined to say Ohio State. I feel like
I think that's true too. I think you can make an argument there, but I feel like there's two clear contenders, right?
Texas?
Because there you go. I guess it's not super
Oregon?
clear, but I would just say that there's not. I mean, there are dominant offenses, right? I think we could agree. Bama's offense is dominant. Ohio State's offense is dominant. Texas' offense is dominant. Georgia's offense looks dominant at times. So does Boise State, right? You've got dominant teams, right, on offense, but you don't have that on defense. You don't have a team that is locked down on defense, okay on offense, and winning games consistently. It's just not happening. Michigan isn't able to do it. They were supposed to be the best defense.
Iowa's the closest thing to it, but nope, not anymore.
Yeah, they're not contending.
It's going to be interesting. I'd honestly say you could say Oklahoma for that matter because their defense looks a little bit more solid than their offense. So if we were trying to fit the mold, I would honestly have to go with Oklahoma there. But
they're playing close games with Auburn and Arkansas.
Exactly,
it's a hard question.
It is an offensive generated league, and that is why passing in this whole new era of football is just changed for either for better or for worse. So we're going to have to see. But anyways, let's get into the matchups of week 7. Okay, Kieran, who is our first team?
So the first game we've got in perhaps the famed October 12th, the famed best week of college football, we have a duel in Dallas, Texas at Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. So, Kirtan, give us a little breakdown of your favorite rivalry game.
Favorite? It actually might be. You might have me on this one. Okay, so what everyone needs to keep in mind is that, look, Texas, very good team. No one is ever doubting that. Historically, and for the last century, or not, 2000 to 2020, or actually, let's go even more recent. Let's go 2010 to 2020. Oklahoma has won about 13 out of the last 20 meetings, or I believe it was something along those lines. Out of the 14 meetings, What am I talking about? Oklahoma has won at least double as much as Texas has. So again, you can make the whole statement, oh, we were flipping through coaches, Tom Herman, blah, 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 blah. What happened last year? Last year, we saw Dylan Gabriel step up to the plate, play the best brand of football I've seen from a quarterback in a while, like a most complete game, and then take Texas and beat them. And that is a common trend. These games are the highest scoring games in college football. That's why they're so fun to watch. Rivalry games, no one lets off the gas. It doesn't matter if you're up by 60 points, you're still going to throw the ball. And that was evident of what's going to happen. So we're going to see a battle of the Titans. We're always going to say that. You can say it about every game. It doesn't matter. It's a rivalry game. I always say this, and I always will say this, are so hard to predict. But for that matter, I do think Texas needs to pull off a win here, and they're going to do so after losing in the last couple of meetings. So they're going to get the win, and this final score of this game is going to be 20. I'm gonna go 49-42 Texas in a good old fashioned shootout. Kieran?
Yeah, I so Texas, this is an interesting game for me, right? Texas has struggled in this game in the past. I really think that they have a good opportunity to get a solid win here. To me, I think Texas has the edge on the defensive side of the ball. Their secondary's been playing great. Good secondary versus new quarterback never goes well. I would expect to see Michael Hawkins give the ball up at least once throughout this game, which gives Texas an edge to me. I think the bye helps both teams, at least in the sense of everybody's fresh, everybody's rested, and you've gotten an extra week to prepare for this team. I don't think it helps the overall standard of play, but the real question for me here is if Oklahoma's defense can show up. I don't think they can on the defensive line. I think Kelvin Banks and this veteran Texas offensive line core that have allowed just absolutely ran through teams, even Michigan, and have allowed a almost no pressure on Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, right? And then if Oklahoma secondary can show up and force Quinn to check it down and keep the game close, maybe Oklahoma's got a shot. I'm not sure if they can. To me, they've got a great secondary, but I think Texas also has a great core of receivers that will be able to get open. I am taking the Longhorns 38-31.
Yeah. Alrighty, well, moving on, we have Pitt taking on Cal. So will Cal get cheated out of the refs or cheated by the refs again? We shall see. So Kieran, what was interesting about this game? Why did we pick it for a fun watch?
So this is a great week of college football, and there are plenty of options. You could have gone Penn State, USC. You could have gone a million other games, but Cal and Pitt. So Cal has had a great defense so far. They've been able to absolutely stifle Miami until the fourth quarter when I think honestly they got tired. They are coming off this heartbreaking loss and Pitt is rolling. It is a absolute collision course game. Cal, solid defense. Fernando Mendoza has been playing great at quarterback for the Cal Bears. They've been able to hand the ball and they've been able to throw the ball in key situations as well as get that quarterback run going. And it's really something special to see Cal in this position. And it's also something incredible to see Pitt in this position. It's honestly a crazy, crazy matchup that this is one of our featured games. But to me, I honestly think that it is kind of a toss-up. Kirtan, I think, is going to lean Pitt, but I got to pick Cal 28-20.
Yeah, I just believe in Pitt. I think they're going to actually play a phenomenal game. They're going to show their true stripes and their true colors, especially. I think they're just going to keep rolling. They're going to get past this defensive Cal. It's just going to be another heartbreak in the end. And I just like to see Pitt continuing on, doing what they need to do, and winning games slowly but surely, just progressing ever so slightly. And so for that reason, I have them winning 27-21. Alrighty. Here is what most people consider to be the game of the week, but this is not what we picked as the game of the week. We picked a different one. This is Ohio State, the BFER poll number 1, taking on the BFER poll number 5 in Oregon. I don't know why it took me so long to think of Oregon, but Oregon. Kieran, what are some key takeaways to see who wins this, and what are the implications for the winner and loser?
So, my biggest takeaway is that this game is, in all effect, as it's looking right now, the game for the Big Ten championship. Because there are no divisions anymore, and Michigan's already taken a loss, and you don't really have Iowa's not realistically contending. You can't say Minnesota is realistically contending. Maybe Penn State can contend, but you have to think that this is one of the games to determine who is 1A for the Big Ten championship and who is 1B. It is notably also not a playoff elimination game. Whoever takes a loss, maybe they're not looking at that round 1 bye, but they're still looking at potentially a 5 seed, a really good positioning in the playoff. You've got, again, a veteran quarterback in Dylan Gabriel going against a veteran secondary led by Caleb Downs. You're looking at the Ohio State defense, who's been absolutely dominant this year. They've been stifling opponents. They held Iowa to 7, not the greatest achievement, but they've held all of their other opponents under 20 points. It is a great achievement. They've been absolutely on the ball, able to play. The question is can they match up to Oregon? For me, in the front 7, I think that's where this Ohio State defense perhaps struggles just a little bit compared to the back 9, as Kirtan likes to call it. But for me, the biggest takeaway is if Dylan Gabriel and the Oregon offense can have a balance. Can they run and throw the football and make headway against this Ohio State team? Now, on the other side of the ball, the biggest takeaway for me is how does Will Howard play when the lights shine a little brighter? He's played great so far, looking like the second best transfer quarterback move to Cam Ward, which is not at all shameful, and perhaps the better big game quarterback, if you have to say just leading the troops. He's got a great wide receiver, Jeremiah Smith. If they can link up and be on the same page, they're going to be hard to stop. I have to take Ohio State 38-35. I do think it is going to be close in Eugene.
Yeah, and what do I see from this? I see a battle of the QBs, for sure. I want to see how Dylan Gabriel performs on a new team. He's already been in a similar situation, Red River. He knows how to play in big games, and the question is, will he just be able to perform to the level of expectations everyone knows he can? Will Oregon show their true stripes and their true colors, show why they deserve to be here at number 3, not anywhere lower, not anywhere higher? And then on the other side, Ohio State's a little bit more interesting. I do think Ohio State has probably the most dynamic offense of all time, or not of all time. Let me rephrase that. Of the last 10 years of which Ohio State has had, Ohio State known for breeding wide receiver talent, going from Chris Olave to Garrett Wilson to Marvin Harrison to now Jeremiah Smith. You know that they have elite wide receiver talent, but they also, for the first time in many, many years, they have an elite running back. Since I would say Ezekiel Elliott, as far back as till then, they now have an elite running back, not just one, but 2 of them. So the question is, how can they use this new dynamic of an offense and figure out their footing, get into a good groove where they can balance the run with the throw, with different formations, RPOs. You can go so many different ways with this. But what I do think is going to happen is I think Will Howard's going to be a little overwhelmed. Of course, he came from Kansas State, and he hasn't been in this big of a scene, I don't believe. And I don't think with this big of game implication going on. And so I will take the Ducks at home to win it behind Dylan Gabriel with a final score of, I believe I said 34-31. I
That
think
is
that's
what you
good for
said.
him.
Yes, it is. I am looking at the rundown as we speak.
Good to know. Good to know. All righty.
All
Well,
right.
let's move on. Let's get some other games. Let's move on to our Big 12 matchup of the week. We got BYU, the undefeated, taking on Arizona.
So this is a key Big 12 matchup. There is a lot of drama in the Big 12. You've got Iowa State as your top team, right? But then below them, there is a duke out between Kansas, who's playing, or Kansas State, who's playing Colorado, Arizona, BYU, all these teams, right? For me, this is a very, very key Big 12 matchup. If Arizona, probably the most dangerous team, if Tito McMillan and Noah Fafita connect like they have been, it's going to be really, really hard for BYU to come out with a win. But the Cougars have looked great. Honestly, they're trying to roll their way through to a Big 12 championship. They might be able to. To me, Arizona presents a major hurdle, but I'm still going to take BYU 35-28.
Oh, yeah. And I think BYU, they're going to do their best. They're going to play to the level of expectation, to that Mormon mentality, as we like to say over here on Beyond the Snap podcast. But here's the thing. I don't know how long it's going to be able to last. Arizona, they're known for upsetting big teams, Kansas State most notably. But will they be able to stay undefeated? Or not, should I say Arizona State? I meant Kansas State. I think I said that right. If not, my bad. But they can win big games. They know how to. Most notably the game on Friday, like 2 weeks ago. But will that be able to maintain? I don't think so. I think that BYU is just going to continue to move on, and they're going to show it with a good 35-28 win against Arizona. So moving on to the last two games we have, or actually the game of the week, with a whole bunch of stats that we have for them. We have the number 10 team, Ole Miss, taking on LSU, who is ranked at number 12 as of right now. So let's get straight into it. Kieran gave us some of the stats to break this game down of the week.
Yes. So the reason this game is the game of the week is because I mentioned I think this is a playoff elimination game. I think that Ole Miss and LSU, it's kind of we can only take one. There's only one parachute left. No, is the season over if they don't get it? No, not necessarily. But this is a win that you have to have, to me, for either of these teams to have a path to the playoffs, right? You've got a lot of hard games coming up. And if you can get a win here, it sets you up much better for the rest of the season. And you don't have to take down an Alabama, take down a Georgia, right? A team like that, or win out, right? So to me, it is honestly a playoff elimination game and an offensive battle. What more could you possibly ask for? So I'm going to give you some quarterback stats and a little bit of defensive stats. So Jackson Dart so far, 2,100 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Garrett Nussmeier, 1,652 yards through the air, 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So you have to say the quarterbacks are pretty evenly matched here. Both could have a big night. Both could make it a real offensive shootout. I think I have to lean Jackson Dart. He's more experienced, even though I think Nussmeier might have better weapons. Now, defensively, Ole Miss. Now, this is skewed. They haven't played the caliber of team LSU has played, but they've allowed 7.5 opponent points per game. LSU has allowed 21.6. So it is possible that Ole Miss defense is the difference in holding LSU to a under their 35.2 points per game for this year. But Kirtan, what's your take on this game? And what do you think is the keys to unlocking this game of the week matchup?
Okay, so what I want to start off by saying is, look, LSU Ole Miss, it's going to be a great game because it's not only that, of course, it's for the Big Ten, like Alabama or Oregon and Ohio State is, but again, it's a playoff matchup. It's really to see who gets eliminated because you can only take so many players or so many teams, for that matter, to the 12-team playoff, and you know that one of these teams has to go because right now we're looking at Texas, Georgia, Bama, and then maybe you sneak in a Tennessee in there. Maybe you find some room for an A&M. We'll see. So this game is really like who can assert their dominance and who can get into that spot. I know both me and Kieran had Ole Miss into the playoffs in our preseason predictions, but we're just going to have to see how that plays out. And so this is going to be a really tall tale game. So Jackson Dart, Garrett Nussmeier, like Kieran already said with the stats, very close game. We don't know how they play differently. They both have similar passing yards. Well, I can tell you, I think Jackson Dart is the more risky quarterback. I think that he takes the bigger gambles and they mainly pay off for him. He's willing to put his head down and tuck the ball and run for the hard yards. I don't think that's something that Garrett Nussmeier necessarily is able to do at the best of his ability. And so for that reason, I would take Jackson Dart there. Another thing is running. So we really don't know what to think of the how do I say this? I guess we don't really know what to think of LSU's running game because they've only put up around 200 yards with their starting running back right now. Well, when you look at other teams like, of course, Ole Miss here, they've put up already 900 yards on like 90 carries, just some crazy stats. And so you really don't know how this is going to play out at both teams. The only things that you know for certain is that LSU does have the home field advantage. We don't know how big of a part that's going to play, but again, playing down in the Bayou is not an easy task and you should feel a little bit scared going into it, so you don't know how that's going to fare. Defense is another big thing. We know that both teams are very potent on offense, but who has the better defense? I would argue in this case it would be honestly Ole Miss. Both teams have been allowing few points, but Ole Miss only allowing 7 points a game, and that's because of the players like Amos, who's on defense. You just got all these big weapons. Of course, the addition of Walter Nolan has been very special. And so now you really look to see where you're going to stand, how you're going to play, and where you're going to dominate which facilities. LSU, same thing. LSU does not have any bad losses. They have a loss to USC, and that's about it. And USC played a phenomenal game. It's just USC has not been showing their stripes and true colors as well. So your win against them looks less relevant. And so again, it's playoff implications for both teams. Loser honestly has to start looking at the board and saying, "Look, we have to have a miracle happening." Luckily, I believe we both play A&M. I may be mistaken because I don't know if Ole Miss plays them. I'm gonna hopefully check that for y'all real fast and figure it out. In fact, they do not. So I believe it's just down to LSU versus A&M to figure it out. But again, Ole Miss, this could be a really defining game for you. Make the best of it. Hopefully, make the playoffs. I have you guys winning this one while being away 35-17. So I want a big statement game. I want you to keep rolling and please make the playoffs so at least my preseason predictions were right.
Yeah, I also have Ole Miss, but my biggest takeaway is if LSU can force the issue, take away the football, and force Ole Miss to become a one-dimensional offense, either on the ground or through the air, I think LSU can win it, but I still have Ole Miss 38-31.
Yep, and that about does it. This has been another successful, I would say, week of the Beyond the Snap podcast. We are trying our best. I promise you to get out these personal vids. They are just a very, very, very hard task for us to do. We got a lot of homework. We have a class called physics left. Yeah, it's not fun. Highly do not recommend. But if Miss Davis, you're watching this, I love the class. You know everything about it. Anyways, we are trying our best. We're gonna get you out as much uh, videos as we can, breaking down some of these games, and hopefully we start spewing them out whenever it comes close. Because my favorite part of the year is still yet to come, and that is, of course, whenever we get down to playoff predicting time and who actually makes it and who doesn't. I'm gonna post several videos about that. I'm gonna get a video going out about who are the rivalries, dark horses, wherever we can. We're gonna get you some solid videos that recap what's happening in college football. So be aware, stay tuned, and that's all I got for y'all. Karen, anything else?
Thank you for watching. I love Vandy. Good night.
Peace.